All right, everybody. Did you enjoy your April 1st? Did you go to work and people played pranks on you? Tirda, I know this is totally retarded, but I'm looking at the the top 15 office pranks that people did, like filling cubicles full of popcorn and balloons and the whole wrapping up the desk, the chair, the monitor, the everything in Christmas paper. Stuff like that.
Putting a stapler in Jell-O.
Putting a stapler. It's in jelly. It's in jelly. Somebody filled someone else's. They filled the guy's cubicle with Twinkies. Paper. Wow, there's a bear. I don't know what that's all about.
Where did they get all these Twinkies from?
I don't know. But
maybe the dude from Zombieland wants maybe it was him.
That's right. Twinkies.
He filled his cubicle with Twinkies.
I think the Twinkie company wants you to know that no, they will not last through the apocalypse and that they actually can go bad. I'm sure Twinkies actually have an expiration date on them. Everything has an expiration date, except for us.
I'm not really a big Twinkie lover.
You're not. I'm not really a Twinkie guy either. I mean, I've probably eaten 5 Twinkies in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
I never really saw. Seriously, I never got it.
It's like an elongated object full of cream. It's not really my thing.
I never thought that was. I was never into it. But is that what we want to talk about today? Do we want to talk about Twinkies?
No.
Or do we want to talk about filling your office mate's thing full of popcorn? See, that's what you do, is you prank them on April 2nd. Because they won't.
It's like April Fool's.
They won't be thinking about it.
Yeah.
If you do it on the 1st, everyone's paying
Everyone's
attention.
skittish on the 1st. They're like,
That's
I
right.
don't really know what's going to happen, but something.
Yeah. Zach and putting the tape over the sink hose.
That was me.
Was that you put the tape over the sink hose?
And Paxton got it because I specifically said, don't turn that sink on. And she didn't care. And she did it. And then she got sprayed.
Oh, Zach tried to do the ketchup packets under the toilet seat and putting saran wrap over the toilet.
Oh, he tried that?
Yeah.
Did it work?
I don't know I don't think it did. I don't think it worked.
That's funny.
Anyway.
You know, what I've learned is that the older you get, the less mature you get.
'Cause you like fitness?
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, it's 3 minutes and 9 seconds into a 10, 11, 12. And it's time to talk about democide, death by government. You're like, wow, you're bringing me down. Well, I don't want to bring you down, but I want to talk about something that's really important. And this hour of Student of the Gun, or this half hour of Student of the Gun, is brought to you by Velocity Triggers, the design for precision. I almost said the fastest triggers in the light.
They could be.
They could be. Velocity Triggers, designed for precision. Check those guys out at velocitytriggers.com and Brownells at brownells.com. And we're to be seeing actually all of our friends here next week. As you're listening to this, it's 1 week, and we're going to be up in Nashville. We'll be leaving to go to Nashville for the NRA annual meeting and convention. And we hope to see a whole bunch of you guys there. And we reminded you previously, but I'm going to do it again because sometimes you folks need reminders, that if you are going to be at the NRA annual meeting, and we hope that a lot of you will be, to A, wear your shirts, wear your official Student of the Gun wear.
Yeah, definitely wear a shirt.
Wear your shirts.
Oh, you mean the Student of the Gun shirts.
Well, yeah, that too. We're going to be walking around with official Student of the Gun stickers in our pockets, and if we see you in one of the official Student of the Gun shirts, we're going to give you one. And while you're at the NRA annual meeting and convention, you guys know it's like the big gun show, and all the major manufacturers go there. Our friends at Velocity Triggers will be there, and they're going to have show specials. That's kind of the cool thing about the NRA annual meeting is, unless it's a firearm, a lot of these dealers and manufacturers, they have show specials for whatever, triggers or parts or holsters or knives, or they're not going to do the whole the firearms transfer thing there on the floor. But a lot of the accessory makers, people that make cool stuff, gun oils and so forth. Did you talk to Larry? Are they going to be there with Frog Lube? They going to have a booth?
I would assume so.
I'm guessing
I
they
haven't
probably
talked
will.
to him yet, but I think they will be.
But here's the one thing I know about the NRA is it takes a long time to get on the list to get a booth because they only have so much space and people get on a waiting list for sometimes years to get in there. But if you're walking around the show and you come upon any of the official Student of the Gun sponsors, such as Brownells or Velocity Triggers or SWAT Fuel or XS Sights or Frog Lube or Kel-Tec or Crossbreed Holsters, or
like I said before, I'm going to send you guys an
Duracoat.
Email. Yeah, send you an email.
Did you do that already?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay.
It's scheduled.
It's scheduled? Okay, cool. Anyway, stop by and thank them. Now, if you go to my Velocity Triggers booth and you say, I am a student of the gun, they're going to give you a special show discount on one of their products, on their products. So that is very cool. You want to do that.
Yep, you get a 20% off of the trigger, and it's NRA booth 135. That's going to be a Velocity Triggers. Walk up, tell Tom, say, I am a student of the gun, and thank you for supporting them. And he will give you a special deal on a trigger.
Now, we're going to talk about democide, and we're going to talk about the difference between the United States of America and every other country on the planet. And pretty much after the American Revolution, everyone's like, ooh, that was cool and that was hip and we should do that too. And so you had the French Revolution, which was not at all like the American Revolution. And you've had lots of revolutions and changes and so forth. And the use of a constitution is not really something new. And it's not really that unique. Most nations have what they call their constitution. Now, they're not the same as the United States Constitution, but they have constitutions. And they say, this is what we're going to do, and this blah, 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 blah. But what they don't have and what they are missing is a Bill of Rights. And where the vast majority of nations have really missed the boat is they come up with what they call a constitution. And they think that by creating a document and calling it a constitution, that somehow, that de facto means that they're good guys or that they've offered liberty to citizens and so forth. But most nations' constitutions expressly give the authority to the state. They're like, oh, the state can do this and they can do that and they can do this and blah, blah, blah. But it's only the Bill of Rights that codifies the God-given natural freedoms of the actual citizens. And people say, well, you look at other nations. It doesn't matter whether they're in South America or Africa or Asia or Europe. And they're like, well, that country has a constitution. And you're like, yeah, they do. And their people are all disarmed. And they're all tax slaves. So how did that happen? But they have a constitution. In the United States, and before the Constitution was ratified, most of the state delegates, and you can go back and read your history books, and will say they either refused to ratify the Constitution until the Bill of Rights was submitted, or they basically sought out a promise for an addition of a Bill of Rights. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but that is why the United States of America is so unique in the world. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. I mean, look at Japan. Japan today has a whirlwind economy. I mean, they've got some of the most jaded, overstimulated people on the planet.
They're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's what happens. We bomb the crap out of you, and then we come in and we spend billions of dollars to rebuild your country. You're welcome.
And I think you put it this way for me, is like our country, our walls have guns pointed outward, as opposed to other countries have guns pointed inward.
Well, your Chi-Coms and so forth. But folks, the people of Japan, the reason I brought up Japan is they have this thriving economy, and they have the most overstimulated humans on the planet. They're so bored with themselves. They're so overstimulated that they have to continuously come up with new stuff, new concepts and ideas, and to amuse themselves because they're crazy overstimulated. Okay, well, great. But what are they also? They're completely and totally disarmed, and they're essentially tax slaves but they're very, very distracted, and they're very, very comfortable tax slaves. The problem that a government or a state runs into is when the tax slaves are no longer distracted and they're no longer comfortable. So what you've got to do is you have to keep that balance. You have to keep the, you can have a nation full of tax slaves as long as they're distracted by either sporting events or distracted by social agenda stuff, and keep them comfortable, keep them fat and happy. Make sure that they have their iPhones or their Android phones or their tablets or whatever. They're just like a bunch of spastic squirrels. It's when they don't have that, and when they stop watching the TV or the internet or what have you, when they actually shut off the YouTube, and they realize they're like, hey, I'm just a tax slave here. That's when the state has a problem. Now, the founding fathers, and this was, our nation was founded before the Soviet Union, before Nazi Germany, before Pol Pot, but there had been mass murder committed by governments. There had been genocide committed by governments long before that. And our founding fathers knew that in the whole history of the world, essentially the people were always looking to the government for their salvation. Now, Great Britain did institute a constitution, and a lot of the American Constitution, the United States Constitution, is taken from that. You had the Magna Carta, and we had agreements between the government and the people. But what did they have? What was missing? A codified Bill of Rights that says these are the limitations on the government. The government is only allowed to do these certain things, because what they knew by being educated and based upon experience is that the government is never going to voluntarily reduce its size and scope. It's never going to come out. They're the people in the seat of power because it's good for them. The people in the seat of power, the ruling class, they're enjoying life. They've got what they need. If you had a good teacher or good teachers when you were growing up and you learned about Soviet-style communism, you will know that, like Animal Farm, some animals are more equal than others. In the Soviet communist system, if you weren't a member of the party, it pretty much sucked to be you. Oh, you want your toilet paper a little bit faster, or you want an increased ration of beef? Well, I suggest that you get on board and join the Communist Party. Because if you're a member of the party, things are a little bit easier on you. Well, how is that equal? Well, it's not. But there's always been a system of haves and have-nots. There's always been a system of ruling class and peasantry. Always. For the entire history of the world. Until the United States of America. Until this grand experiment in self-government. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the only way, the only structure to prevent that, to prevent democide, genocide committed by government, is self-government, is representative republicanism, is the framework, not the current state, but the framework that we were given. And folks, they often talk about, you're like, I want to talk about guns, man. Let's talk about guns. Let's talk about this and that. And I fear that many people are disappointed when they initially find Student of the Gun, when they find the show and they listen to it, and they're like, what's this guy talking about all this, like, politics and stuff? I don't want to talk about politics. I want to talk about guns. Well, besides...
They are one and the same?
Yeah, well, besides being very childish and sophomoric. Folks, a firearm, first and foremost, in the hands of a citizen, is an instrument of liberty. That's all it is. It's no different than a sword or a pike or a lance or a bow or a crossbow or what have you. 500 years ago, the peasants, the governments forbid the peasants to own lances or swords or spears because they're the peasants and we're the ruling class. And the only time, Jeff Cooper once said, pick up a rifle. When a man picks up a rifle, he transforms from a subject to a citizen. I'm paraphrasing Cooper there, but essentially he says, when a man picks up a rifle, he turns from a subject into a citizen. And you could say the same thing about a sword. Mm-hmm. When a man picks up a sword. When a man holds a sword, he is no longer a subject, he is a citizen. And that's the way it always has been on planet Earth, and that's the way it is going to be until the end of time, whether or not you like it, whether or not you appreciate it, whether or not you think that it's not fair or utopian or what have you. And all the utopians that you talk to that want to get rid of guns, or we need to, guns are bad, and and assault weapons, and da-da-da-da-da-da. If you sit down with them, you say, okay, well, don't you think that every police agency in the United States should get rid of all of their evil black assault rifles? And don't you think that the government should take the first step and set the example? And then they're like, oh, so what you're saying is guns are bad in the hands of the citizen because the citizens can't be trusted. And that's what that's where you end up at. You have these comfortable slaves who are essentially useful idiots for the state. And for whatever reason, whether it's mental laziness or selfishness, they hold on to this. The citizen can't be trusted, but the government can. The government can be trusted to arm its employees with evil black rifles, but the peasants can't be allowed to own evil black rifles because they can't control themselves and they're not responsible. Well, let's take a look at just the 20th century. We won't go back, to the Mongols and so forth. But let's look at the 20th century and examples of the state in possession of arms and the citizens being deprived of the possession of arms. Let me see. The death toll, the estimated death toll, and this comes to us from Hawaii.edu. And
I'm trying to figure out how this is the .edu.
Yeah.
How is this information?
It's on a college's site, and there's actually a book called, the book is called Death by Government by R.J. Rummel, and it's available on Amazon. But this report here, and you may have heard these numbers before, but okay, who do you think are out there in the United States listening audience? Which country do you think is responsible for the greatest genocide in the history of the world? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Well, you've been taught by the big media that Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party were the worst thing to ever happen on planet Earth, right?
I would have went with Stalin. But
Jared is correct. The number one killer was the Soviet Gulag system under Stalin, and those who came after Stalin. Now, they generally say that Stalin is responsible for 20 million deaths himself. That's one guy. Think about that. People in the United States of America, we have a psycho walks into a school or a movie theater or a restaurant or whatever, and he kills 10 people. And people freak, and they scream to the government for more control. We need more control. You peasants need to disarm yourselves. You need to surrender your liberty in the interest of public safety. And here you have one guy and his minions who are responsible for 20 million deaths. And that's just Stalin. That's not all the people that came after him. Now, the Soviet Gulag system, you're not down with the struggle? Well, see ya. You're gone. You're going to the work camps. You're going to Siberia. 61 million and change dead in the Soviet Gulag system. That's your communism. All of you, you young skulls full of mush, are people who know these bright-eyed 20-year-old college sophomores who think communism is just the most wonderful thing in the world. So Soviet communism is responsible for over 61 million deaths. Then we have Chinese communism.
See, I would have thought that the Nazi regime was next.
No, not even close. Chinese communism is responsible for an estimated 35 million deaths. Because Chinese communism and Russian communism were really in play for a lot longer than the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party in Germany really only had sway for about 10 to 15 years or so, depending on, when you say that Hitler actually came into power. And when he died. Now, next up, what you've got is you have the Nazi regime, and they're responsible for 20 million deaths.
And when I'll clarify for him when he says deaths, he's talking about murders. That
Yeah.
doesn't include
That doesn't-
justifiable death or
No,
justifiable homicide.
So you've got that. So you got socialism and communism. Socialism and communism, the two isms that are fair. They're the most fair of all. When you go to any college campus, and they will tell you how fair things are, right? And how wouldn't it be wonderful if everything could be fair and everyone could be equal and yada, 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 right? Well, things are fair until you're on the other side of the bayonet. And then things aren't so fair anymore. Now, let's talk about some of the things you may not know. The Khmer Rouge. How many of you people who are under age 30 know what Khmer, Khmer Rouge? Well, the Khmer Rouge was in Cambodia, and they were hardcore communists. And they went around, they killed anybody that was educated, anyone that was college educated, anyone that wore glasses. Did you know that, Jared?
No, I didn't know that.
If you wore glasses, that was a crime. That was against you. You were rounded up.
Because
intellectuals, anybody who was an intellectual, because they were trying to force everyone back into the agrarian farm thing. No lawyers, no teachers, no instructors, they gave them SKSs. The Chinese backed them, and this is what they did. The movie The Killing Fields. A lot of you guys probably have no idea, and this is what happens when you, as a country, create a power vacuum. A power vacuum is what we did in Vietnam. We went into Vietnam, and we were going to fight the communists, and we were actually winning the war, but the people of the United States. And did you know that from a technical standpoint, a lot of you probably don't know this, you think that the Tet Offensive was a huge failure for the United States of America. It actually wasn't. It was a surprise attack. And even though, it was a surprise attack, though most military intelligence understood that something was coming, they knew that they were building up. They just didn't realize the magnitude of it. But 6 months after the Tet Offensive, the VC, the Viet Cong movement, most of their leaders were dead or captured. Most of their troopers were dead or captured. And from a military standpoint, the Tet Offensive was not a military success for the communists, but it was a political success because the American people, being all peace, love, dope hippies, gave up. They gave up on the conflict. And they're like, well, we might be winning the war, but it's on TV and it's terrible, so we're going to stop.
So what initiated the Tet Offensive?
Tet was the Vietnamese Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
And the Tet Offensive was the communists. The North communists, the North Vietnamese communists that were backed by communist China. That was the Chinese war that they were waging against imperialism and capitalism in the West through the Vietnamese. Look it up, study sometime, and you'll find out that that's true. Well, what we did is we just left. We gone, and that created this power vacuum in that region, and that's one of the many things that led up to the killing fields. Over 2 million people in little Cambodia were rounded up and murdered. Over 2 million. Then you had 1.8 million in Turkey, in the Turkish genocides. There's an ethnic cleansing in Poland that claimed 1.5 million. Pakistani cutthroat state, 1.5 million. Tito
Ortiz?
Yeah, not Tito.
Not Tito.
Not Tito Ortiz. Are you getting it yet, folks? Are you getting it yet? And you say, well, yeah, Paul, what does that have to do with us? What does that have to do with the United States? Folks, the reason that the United States is not Cambodia, the reason it is not Soviet Russia, that is not The reason that we haven't had you got North Korea that continues to like murder their people constantly for the last 50 years. They say there's at least 1.6 million have been murdered by the government in North Korea. But hey, no big deal. What's 1.6 million people? So I would say, Jared, I don't have the FBI uniform crime statistics in front of me right now. But if you were to pull up the FBI's uniform crimes reporting statistics, I would say that you're probably not going to come up with 1 million murders by anything, by cars, trucks, airplanes, hammers, assault, and so forth. But people will say, well, one person died from a green-tipped ammo, so we have to disarm the people. Ladies and gentlemen, if you learn nothing else, and don't take my word for it, do your own research. But just on the face of it, what you can see is and they're like, well, that'll never happen here in America. It might have happened to other places. They're going to consent. Maybe. When the final death toll from ISIS comes out, it's going to be horrifying. You're going to be horrified because we did the same thing in Iraq that we did in Vietnam. We went in, we won the military battle, we lost the political battle, we pulled out, created a power vacuum. Don't you love how they're trying to blame Bush and Cheney?
Yeah, I was just about to say.
They're trying to blame Bush and Cheney for ISIS. They're like, they created the situation. No. Nice try, douche nozzles. Not going to work. ISIS was not in place 7 years ago. It was not until the convoluted and upside-down rules of engagement and then the current administration setting a timetable. You don't set timetables for victory. You either have victory or you don't. And so your enemy, they're like, well, they said they're going to be out by July 1st, so we'll just wait. And July 1st will come and go. They'll leave, and then we'll take over. The current administration owns ISIS. They can't deny it. They created a power vacuum, even though they were told, hey, you can't do this.
Well, you're just going to fire people that tell us that.
Yeah.
We can't listen to the people that have been there and done that. We have to. We would rather rely on a community organizer that has never been to war or dealt with people like this before to make decisions.
We'll get rid of all the generals that don't agree with us until we have a bunch of sycophants and yes men. And then this happens and we're like, oh,
well, maybe if he would
we didn't see that coming.
If he would have just wrote a letter to ISIS, because he said he was going to make changes with a pen.
Yeah, that's
if he would have just wrote a letter.
So, ladies and gentlemen, when people ask you, they say, well, why do you think America's different? There's one reason and one reason only. It's called the Bill of Rights. That's it. Everybody has constitutions. Everybody has a constitution. England has a constitution right now, and it's crumbling. Yes, Great Britain is crumbling right before your very eyes. And eventually Great Britain is going to fall. Sorry, but it's going to happen because you don't have the chutzpah to make it not happen. Because your government is filled with capitulators. Sorry if it hurts your feelings, but it's going to happen. France may or may not fall. Germany may or may not fall. I don't think Germany's going to fall. I think Germany's finally going to get sick of it. And now that Germany's unified again, but folks, don't mess with a unified Germany.
Have you ever watched Top Gear?
Yeah.
It's actually pretty good. The dudes are funny.
Yeah, I know.
And I just watched an episode last night. It was the one where they travel to India. You've probably never seen it, but they go to India. And
I may have.
Oh, because they're trying to sell products from their country to save their country. Because they know, they're like, oh, our country's going to go under. We need to sell products to other countries so we can save our country.
What? That's crazy talk. I thought how you saved your country was buying a bunch of cheap Chinese garbage.
Yeah.
And putting labor unions in charge. Ooh, that hurt your feelings? I got a giant Band-Aid for you. All right, let's we're gonna keep on with this theme. We're gonna move on, but folks, this is what I'm gonna say at the end. Jared, America, right or wrong? Remind me to say at the end. All right, this next segment is
right or wrong.
Yeah, this next segment is brought to you by XS Sites, the fastest sites in any light, and SWAT Fuel. Check them out at SWATfuel.com. They've redesigned their web store, and folks, you want to go to SWATfuel.com. Speaking of SWAT Fuel, Jerry, did you send out the special promo code to the grad program members?
No, they get that this week. Oh,
They get that this week. All
Speaking
right.
of that, the grad program members and everything. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow is
Friday.
Friday.
That's usually what happens after.
Yeah, usually they get. Is it usually what happens after Thursday?
Yeah, usually.
They get their grad program bonus hour and all the extra stuff on Friday, and that includes this Friday will be the tactical tutor.
That's right, Tactical Tutor newsletter.
There we go. So you guys have that to look forward to if you're part of the grad program. Oh, and we've got some other big news coming out. We'll announce that next week, though.
Yeah, next week. But it's big news. You're going to pay attention. All right, let's move on to parts of the world that have constitutions but no Bill of Rights. That's right. That's our official Canada update theme. And thank you, Geddy Lee, for giving us that. Take off, eh? Ottawa Sun. And this story is dated. We shared it on our Facebook page. And if you're not following the official Student of the Gun Facebook, shame on you. But you can very easily fix yourself. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Canadian Gun Control Works. Just not for the people that you think it does. Gatineau seniors, victims of violent home invasion. Now, what? This story is datelined March 27th. March 27th. It says Gatineau. You got to know? I got to know. A pair of Gatineau seniors were out of the hospital and recovering at home after they were trapped, attacked, and robbed while watching TV Thursday night. That's a week ago Thursday. It began around 8:45 p.m. when Raul Blanco heard a loud banging from the upstairs. He and his wife, yada, yada, yada. Two masked men coming down the staircase. Jared, we've got some cognitive dissonance here. This is going to mess with people that have cognitive dissonance. It says, two masked men came down the stairs into the basement kitchen. One of them grabbed 75-year-old Raul and pushed him headfirst into the bathroom. The attacker then started closing the glass door on his head. That's nice. They jabbed him and hit him in the forearm with a metal rod, which may have been a knife with the blade turned in. Okay. The other man had a gun in his head. He put
in his hand.
I'm sorry. He put the gun to my head, Raul said, adding that he was demanding money. Now, stop for a second. This is Canada. Do they not have very strict and stringent gun control in Canada, Jared?
Yeah, but you know who follows the gun control laws?
And is it? We've gotten lots of reports from people who live in Canada that say it is illegal, even if you do own a firearm, even if you have a gun, it is illegal to keep that gun loaded and ready to use at home. It must be locked away, and the ammunition must be locked away, and it has to be unloaded at home.
So the gun to his head was unloaded.
Oh, apparently. Well, why did he have it? Doesn't he know he's not allowed to carry it in public? So you mean that laws don't save people's lives? Canadian gun control works. It works really well for the criminals. Doesn't work so well for the people of Canada, but hey, what the heck? They're just little tax slaves, and they need to shut their mouths, look at the ground, and pay their taxes. When you have a nation that has decided in the wake of a terrorist attack on the military, when a jihadist, when a Muslim missionary goes on a killing spree and murders a soldier who is holding an unloaded gun, an empty gun, and your response is to hire police officers to guard the soldiers so the soldiers can continue to stand there with empty rifles, you're insane. Your country is run by insane people. Now, I'm not saying that ours is that much different, but at least have the courage to admit it. And the scary thing about Canada, and we're not going to stop saying this, is the fact that all of your good little liberal friends think that Canada is this wonderful panacea. It's utopia. And wouldn't it be great if we were only more reasonable like Canada? Yeah, that would be great. Then we could have more elderly couples held at gunpoint and brutalized by home invaders who are not inclined to follow the law. So we thought you'd appreciate that, and I'm not going to stop reporting on Canadian hypocrisy. So if it offends you, that's just too bad.
There was something we had a story sent in recently that was something good for Canada, but I lost it. It's somewhere. If you sent me that story, send it to the Facebook or my email again so I can put it in the notes.
Positive Canadian news.
If there is something positive that comes out of Canada, we would like to report.
Well,
on
we
that
do.
as well.
We do. All right. So this next one, you may have seen it. It's been shared with us a bunch of times on our Facebook page and Twitters and all that jazz. Is what did we told you probably 2+ years ago? If a woman approaches you and she has a hyphenated last name,
Run.
Approach with extreme caution because that person is probably a lunatic. They're probably insane. Well, the Microsoft News Broadcasting Corporation, or MSNBC, which is also it's basically the propaganda wing for the current administration and the left. The Microsoft News Broadcasting Company has a hyphenated chick, and this hyphenated chick has a show, and she likes to get a bunch of other liberal Democrat scumbags and then maybe bring one pseudo-conservative rhino person on the panel. She had something to say about lawful concealed carry and the police. Yes, according to the MS liberal person here, Melissa Harris Perry, she poses the question as to whether or not lawful concealed carry puts police in danger.
Maybe she's retarded.
You know what? I think maybe she is retarded. But this story comes to us, it's been around a bunch of different places after she said this nonsense. But Breitbart.com shared it with us. Dateline's March 29th. On March 28th, MSNBC's Melissa Harris-Perry suggested the push away from gun control and towards expanded gun rights, which means more armed law-abiding citizens, actually puts police lives in danger.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
It's too late. She already did. And check this out. She says, this is where the sneaky, deceptive journalism, when they don't make a statement, but they pose a question, and they throw it out there with a question mark at the end of it. That way they can have plausible deniability at the end. They can say, oh, no, I never said that. I just asked that. That would be like me saying, Jared, have you stopped eating your boogers today? I didn't say Jared ate boogers. I just asked him. It was a question. See, so I can't be accused of. And that's what these scumbags do.
A man's got to eat.
That's right. She says, is it possible that our lack of national common sense gun control laws leads to a situation where it is more dangerous to be a police officer, and so police officers begin acting in ways that they expect everyone to be armed? Well, I'm going to go ahead and assume that Ms. Harris Perry here has never been a police officer and has never been to the police academy. But when you go to the police academy, or at least when you used to, I don't know what they teach now. Maybe they teach community policing and, handing out balloons and stuff. But when I went to the police academy, we were taught that there is no such thing as a, quote, routine traffic stop, and that everywhere you go, there is a gun present. Yes, one of our instructors pointed that out to us. They said, yeah, every once in a while you'll get one of these dispatchers that'll send you someplace and they'll say, there's no firearms present or no guns at the scene or whatever. And he said, first of all, how does someone sitting in a swivel chair behind a radio know that where you're going there are no guns? There's no way they could possibly know that. And he said, there's always a gun at the scene, at least one, because you're taking it with you. He said, when you arrive on the scene, there's a gun on the scene. And he acknowledged, or he admonished all of us young crumb crunchers, police cadets, that every scene has the potential. Until you have assured yourself that it is not, you treat every encounter as though the person could be armed. Every traffic stop, every domestic violence, every alarm drop. He said, when you stop doing that and you get complacent, that is when you die. But apparently Ms. Harry Paris, Harris Perry, whatever her name is, I don't care, thinks that now that there are lots of legally armed citizens, that makes it more dangerous to be a police officer in the United States. So I don't have to ask Ms. Harris Perry or Perry Harris or whatever she wants to be called, water carrier for the leftist Democrat. I don't have to ask her if she thinks that the state would be better off if the peasants were disarmed, because that's exactly what she's saying. You're like, why did you drop this in this particular show about democide? What you have here is you have propagandists. Does she say that the police, who are representatives of the state, shouldn't be armed? No. They're the ones who should have guns. It's you peasants out there. It's you teabaggers and all you liberty people that, you right-wingers who refuse to accept, as what she calls, national common sense gun control. Apparently, I'm guessing that Ms. Perry Harris here went to college, but I'm guessing she didn't study the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution very much in college, because Ms. Perry Harris, the national government does not have the authority to create common sense gun control, whether you like it or not, whether or not you think it's a wonderful idea. And wouldn't it be great, and wouldn't everything be fun and magical if the centralized government would just oversee every aspect of our lives? And you know why she thinks that's a good idea? Because she has convinced herself that she's part of the elite. She's part of the ruling class. And these, the laws that you apply to the peasants, well, they only apply to peasants. They don't apply to people like her. She's carrying the water for the administration. She's part of the party. She's an inside party member. So it's okay for the states to have the guns. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the only way that you can force these Republican Tea Party type pro-liberty people to accept more government control, is to get the guns out of their hands.
She really, at the end there, she got to the gist of what she was trying to get to in the first place, and she shifted the conversation over to race. Because, that's what every single mainstream media, that's what they want to push right now.
That's the default.
Race bias.
Oh, you don't agree with me? You're a racist.
Yeah, she said, I guess part of what I will say is my concern that because of racial stereotyping, that creates implicit bias. I wonder who is stereotyping. I think that would be the media. And
that would be them.
People like you. That for officers who are making a judgment call about whether they are in fear that an African-American male body can be perceived as more dangerous than it actually empirically is.
Really?
That was her quote.
So she live in does she live in South Side of Chicago?
I don't know.
I'm guessing
really care.
No.
But after she got her argument smashed by this dude, she changed it to their comfort zone, which is race.
Yeah, always default
racially motivated.
Yeah, if you ever start losing an argument,
just call them racist.
Default to race.
Yeah.
Oh, you obviously are racist because you don't agree with me. Really? Wow, your argument is so powerful and compelling.
I've seen a lot of studies come up lately that are black males or African American. They call them African American.
Well, I don't know what to say because I don't get daily memorandums on what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah. Well, I've seen.
Apparently, there are those out there that I just didn't get.
Yeah, I've seen studies recently that are like more black males are stopped than white males, even in predominantly white areas. And my question to those who made the study, or you guys, the question that you should ask is, are they stopped because the police are racist, or are they stopped because of their behavior?
Well, it can't be their behavior. We don't, in America, we don't hold people responsible for their behavior.
I mean, obviously, we've seen that there is a problem with the way that police are trained as well. But get down to the facts. What is the real reason that they're being stopped? Why don't you do a study on that instead of just the numbers?
No. Well, what I would ask Ms. Harris Perry here is, does she know who Lenore Draper was? When I say was, because Lenore Draper was an African-American black, I don't know what I'm supposed to, whatever, person of color. I like how they say African-American person of color. So if you're from South Africa and you have light skin, then that doesn't make you an African-American, apparently. Lenore Draper was a big, she was part of the Project Orange Tree, and she was an anti-violence advocate in Chicago.
Is that the one that got shot?
And she was gunned down by 2 African Americans of color on her way home from a Project Ceasefire meeting. So what does Ms. Harris Perry think about that? Now, she probably doesn't know about that. She's probably not going to talk about that because it's the white cop's fault that happened, obviously. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap this up right now, but here's what? You want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of guns being taken away and stuff, we got an email from another vet who's disabled thanking us for putting out the information on Rick. And
Mr. Bailey.
Yeah,
in
Mr. Bailey.
Arizona.
I want to ask you guys if you have supported him. If not, go do that. There's a link in Monday's show notes. And that's SOTG145. Go to studentofthegunradio.com and you can get all that stuff. But what was funny to me, or what was interesting, is the email that we got, the guy signed it Disabled Doug.
Oh, okay.
So he's obviously got a sense of humor.
All right. So this show, and we talked about democide or death by government, and we threw out some numbers. We threw out some examples of what happens when the people are disarmed but the government is not, and people who are basically cheerleaders for the state. What I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to ask your family and your friends and your acquaintances, when these things come up and they talk about ISIS or they talk about gun control or they talk about whatever, here's the basic question, and it's actually kind of a statement, but it is: America is right, yes or no? And when someone tells you, oh, this and that or this and that, and you say, no, stop. I understand America is not perfect. I get that part. I get that America is not perfect, but America is right, yes or no? And if a person cannot say to you, yes, if they can't look you in the eye when you say, America is right, yes or no, and that's from my buddy Jay Gibson, if they can't do that, then you should. I would say you're done talking to that person, because they're going to give you excuses. They're going to give you liberalism. They're going to give you whatever is popular or populist, but they can't be honest with you. So take that one with you. America is right, yes or no?
And that one came from the grad program, the bonus hour, when we had Mr. Jay Gibson on.
Yep, that was from the Jay
That
Gibson
was a while
interview.
back, yeah.
It was. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We went way long, which is the way she likes it.
Yeah.
So you're childish. You're so juvenile. That might work in the locker room, but it doesn't work with me. Go listen to NPR, you eunuch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, Jared's going to go ahead and hit the cool Madison Rising outro music in about 3, 2, 1. And here's what I'm going to tell you. It's Thursday, which means for you public hour listeners, I will be back with you next Monday. If you're a grad program listener, we will talk to you tomorrow. Remember, you're a beginner once, but you should indeed be a student for life.